Good day, everyone. Welcome to Sound Espressivo. I'm Anna Ouspenskaya. I'm a pianist and I'll be your host today. Our programs are powered by virtual concert halls and we are broadcasting from Vienna, Virginia. It's actually quite dark, rainy, and depressing here in Washington, D.C. area. Perfect excuse to cancel the program, which we are not going to do. Sound Espressivo is a new generation of classical music competition which offers contestants to perform in live broadcasts from their own locations anywhere in the world. Sound Espressivo panel of judges represents top performing artists and music educators from around the globe. Sound Espressivo offers an unprecedented array of awards for musicians. Our guests join our programs from their own locations around the world. They bring and share their musical gifts, their expertise, their personalities, their dreams. We present our guests' opinions, and we hope that our audience will benefit from hearing different and maybe sometimes conflicting points of view on classical music, music aesthetics, music business, and other topics which we raise throughout our programs. Welcome to our live podcast. Meet the judges, music promoters and managers, and music educators.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressivo Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.
Today we invited Gianmaria Griglio, who will be joining us in a moment from Netherlands, and who is brought to our program by the iClassical Academy. iClassical Academy is the company which helps introduce professional musicians and students to the work of some of the most renowned and influential professional musicians and educators through online learning. iClassical also helps artists of the greatest stature reach a broader audience and to discover the potentials of working and connecting through online platforms. iClassical Academy offers a fully rounded educational curriculum, which is a tremendous source of vetted and proven knowledge. The courses are both academic and practical, and designed for professional musicians as well as for students, amateurs, and music lovers. The courses are created in close collaboration with some of the most respected and leading professionals in our field. Recently, the company opened their collection of courses and other educational materials as a rounded curriculum where people can access all of what iClassical accumulated over the years, and they've been working in the field for quite a few years by now. Pretty much like what a conservatory or a university offers to their enrolled students. iClassical Academy is a supporter of the Sound Espressivo competition. The company is sponsoring prizes for winning contestants, which are designed to help musicians be better equipped with modern tools and modern knowledge for progressing towards their own goals as students and musicians. And now I would like to welcome Gianmaria Griglio, a renowned conductor, educator, tireless supporter of classical music, of known, newly written, and underdeservedly forgotten music. Gianmaria, welcome to our program. It's such
Hi,
a pleasure to have you.
thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me here, actually.
Thank you for taking time and putting an effort into all that technology involved, which allowed us to connect. I'm in Washington, D.C. area, and you're in Netherlands.
That's right, yes.
I find it fascinating that we can really talk over each other, being that
Yeah,
far apart. You're an established conductor. You collaborated with some of the most renowned and influential artists and composers of our time. You're a composer yourself. You led many major orchestras, opera companies around the world. Your artistry has been acknowledged through numerous awards, through engagements with major music companies, through collaborations with some of the most outstanding musicians. I have just started, even just briefly mentioning the things you have done, multifaceted sources, multifaceted applications of your art and your talent. But in today's situation, you would be one of those people I would like to get an input. Today's situation is a devastating circumstance, and I would say across the board for all who are working in the performing arts and education field, and everywhere in the world. It's the same. But the conductors and large ensembles are probably among those who had been hit the most. What is your response to the situation, which many of musicians perceive potentially as the end of the performing arts period, at least as the way as we all have known it?
Well, let me put it this way. Um, we have a choice. We all have a choice. You can either sit down, and think about the fact that, we used to have 20 concerts, 50 concerts, 300 concerts a year, and now we have zero because we can't. Or you can move forward. And this is a pattern, actually. This is not just now. I mean, we are living it right now, but this is a pattern that went on for, ever. I mean, throughout history, we as musicians, we are in a category, a very peculiar category. First of all, we are notoriously people that rarely have only one source of income. We have different sources of income, multiple income streams. Which means, if you are a conductor, if you play in an orchestra, then maybe you're not just playing in one orchestra, you're playing in two or three, depending on the season, and then you teach on the side a few lessons here and there. Then maybe you have a few chamber music concerts, and then maybe you give a lecture or something. So, and every little bit comes into your end of the month salary, let's put it this way. The only difference is that now we are moving forward because we, like it or not, are actually living, and this is so fascinating because this is something that we study in school. We study in the history books, the Industrial Revolution or this or that revolution. We are in the technological revolution. We are living it. We're in the middle of it. I mean, when I was born in 1975, I remember, a few years later, of course, my parents, we had in the living room a TV with two channels in black and white.
Exactly. I remember that too.
And now we are talking, you and I, you are in the States, I'm in the Netherlands, and we hear each other live without any difficulties. The the leap that we've taken worldwide in the past 30, 40, 50 years, it's enormous. And it just keeps going faster and faster. So as musicians, artists in general, we can either look at the past and sit there and wait for the concert halls to be open again and for students to come back to school or to our own private homes, or we can move forward and do something else and sort of acquire new tools that are now at our disposal, at our fingertips, literally, and use them in our favor. So, and I don't think that's such a bad thing because it actually pushes you to find new solutions to get your message through. I mean, since, as you mentioned, for conductors, for large ensembles, it's very difficult because large ensembles are not permitted to play. I had a concert in Italy a week ago. We were supposed to do it with the large ensembles. We couldn't, of course, because you have to keep social distancing within the orchestra itself. So it really becomes a material, physical problem that sometimes you can't solve because you don't have enough space.
Exactly.
So we adapted the program. The orchestra was reduced. We changed some parts of the program, and we did something else. We rearranged. So I took a piece actually to end the concert that was originally written for by Boccherini for a string quartet with a guitar, and they rearranged it for orchestra, small chamber orchestra, and a couple of oboes, strings, and castanets.
Hmm.
Uh, that's what people at the time of Bach, Handel, and Mozart, we're talking about 3 centuries ago, did on a daily basis, and we're just going to have to, you know, do some of that as well. Just adapt to the situation, and you do it, and you do it, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, now there's plenty of concerts that we've seen online, for instance, where they rearranged entire symphonies for piano, for hands, for two pianos. Is it the same thing to hear Brahms' Fourth with the full orchestra and to hear it with the piano? No, it's not the same thing. It's a different experience, but it doesn't mean you're doing a disservice to the music. And on another matter, again, you have the choice. Either you don't do anything, but then again, I'm wondering how many people, how many conductors, how many players can afford to not do anything and sit at home for months. I mean, unless
Well,
you're
I
offered.
find it maybe it is a good thing that we don't have resources to sit at home and wait for things to start going backwards as opposed to forward, because then we may be waiting for something which will never happen. And to me, it seems like what you're saying is the availability of all the tools at our fingertips, literally, like you said, is maybe another level of a test of our creativity. We have all
Yeah,
those
indeed,
tools.
absolutely, absolutely. This situation is, um, uh, as like in everything, you have to see, you have to make the most out of it. You can't just accept what's thrown at you. I mean, life, no matter what, will throw at you so many punches that if you just sit there and take them, then you're gonna end up on the floor before it's your time to die.
You'll turn blue.
So, you take the bull by the horns and you say, okay, well, we are in this situation, like it or not. This is the reality that we're in. So let's face it, what can we do to take advantage of it? I used to have students coming home to for lessons, right? I can't anymore. So we transferred that online. Uh, and then from then it came, I had started before, I mean, we'll get into that a little later, but I had started last year without knowing if the pandemic would come with the course on Classical Academy, right? But then, things evolve. You take one step and then you take another step. And then from that, you get more ideas. And I said, okay, I mean, because I mean, let's face it, when you're in full lockdown and you can't go out, or you can only go out to walk your dog, and you're constricted in an apartment or in a house with your wife or your wife and kids, your family, that's all perfectly peachy. But after a while, it gets a little tight. And you start feeling a little nervous because you don't have what you used to have and what you were used to have. So either you go bonkers or you make your wife go bonkers. At which point,
No, please don't. I'm in the wife side of it.
yeah, I
Don't
know.
make me go bonkers.
And my
Go
wife will
online
watch me.
and
So
create something.
or you adjust to different things. And actually, this happens because it can get very depressing. I mean, I have two full bookshelves from the floor to the ceiling, and I can read as many books as I want to, from now to the next 10 years if I want to, and I can take some online too, for that matter, scores and whatnot. But then you need to do something because we're artists and we need to create something. And when you don't really have your instrument, which is the orchestra in, my case, then you have to sort of fight back with something else. So my wife actually suggested me to do something educational for my students, and she said you just take a score and do an analysis of it, talk about it, talk about what you know. I said, okay, fine, I'll try it. And I did the first episode 6 months ago, and I have done of a series that I have on YouTube, and I've done one each week ever since without stopping. And then
Ah,
from there, of course, things
incredible.
improved. And
May I suggest that it may not be such a bad idea to listen to a wife who speaks to you out of her own self preservation?
I know she has very sound suggestions, yes, I must say.
That's incredible. So every week you go online and you talk about the conducting technique and
Every single week. I've
incredible.
done, uh, so far, it's been now, and actually, then I've increased the rate because I it started with this. The series is called Conducting Pills because they're literally pills, small bites of conducting analysis, and they put some technical tips in it and this kind of stuff. And then I started a Facebook group. And then since the thing was growing, I started a Patreon page. So with the Patreon page, I also include there's a part of a course with the iClassical Academy. There's all the scripts from the video, and there's bonus episodes. And for the Facebook group, I also do live sessions once a week. Uh, so you sort of get into this thing where one thing calls for another, and of course in the beginning it's difficult because we have to use tools that we didn't even know they existed,
Absolutely. I'm doing this
and you
right
have
now.
to learn new skills, you have to learn new things. I did the first thing with the quite a few videos actually with the camera from the phone, which is a very good camera actually, but uh, it's I think in business they call it the first Bible product. So you put something out which is not perfect, but it doesn't matter. You put it out, and then people respond to it, and then you adjust, and then you improve, and every time it gets a little better. And you listen to what people are saying to their feedback. That's your audience. And we are in such a um, in such luck in a way, because we were born, at least I was born actually, I should say we, but there are people who were born way after me, but I was born, and many of my colleagues were born and grew up with the idea that you become a musician, you go, you train, you get your. I took my diploma in violin, then I studied composition, and I studied conducting, did the master, did the whole thing, and then you have your concerts, and you're on stage there, and the audience is right in front of you. Which of course means that you have sometimes, depending on where you are, 300 people, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people, depending on where you're performing. And now we are in the position of having uh, way more than that, from 0 to 10,000 to three. There are YouTube channels with 300,000 users. I don't know, but the viewers. But uh, the point is that we are able to reach way beyond what we were taught we could when we were in school. And this
Absolutely.
is an opportunity that we cannot pass on, I think. Whether it's for performing, for teaching, for educational purposes. I wake up in the morning, I got messages from people who saw the videos or who read my stuff at night because they're in freaking Australia or in the United States, and we have 12 hours different. And then, well, we chat on a 12 hours difference, which is incredible. And then sometimes you just say, okay, we meet online, and like you and I did, and say, okay, the time is at 12 Eastern time. For me, it's 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Fine, we meet online at this time. That's it. It's very simple. It's very simple. First time I went to the States, there was no such a thing. I used to talk to my parents once a week, uh, and now everything is ready, available. So let's just use it.
Incredible. And I love how you say, let's just use it. And this is an opportunity which we just cannot miss because it's an enriching opportunity to exponentially connect with more people everywhere in the world across all the barriers, geographic, time zones, governments. We don't even care what the governments think about musicians. We just connect. They don't have to give us visas for that any longer.
Yeah,
Isn't that
exactly.
isn't that an amazing tool? And
I, I think I think that is absolutely fantastic. See, the whole point of putting something out there when it's educational, what it is that you want to do when you're performing, what is it that you want to do? You want to get across to somebody else, right? You want to get your message, your thinking, whatever it is that you're teaching, and you want to communicate it to somebody else. And possibly, I mean, I never heard somebody that says, oh no, I only want three people to know about what I'm doing. I only I only I only want to teach conducting to five people who live in my backyard.
neighborhood, yeah, of course
I mean,
not.
you want to reach as many people as possible, and once upon a time, not so long ago, in order to do that, you had to travel here, go here and there. Not that you can't do that. I mean, at the moment we can't, but uh, not that that is out of the picture. What I'm saying, I'm not saying that we should take everything that we had and flush it down the toilet. That's not the point. I'm saying that we should embrace what we have right now, and things can go parallel on two tracks at the same time. One thing does not exclude the other. You can have a live concert, a live performance with actual people physically attending the performance and still stream it halfway across the world via YouTube or Facebook or you name it. And you can have students come to your home whenever that's possible or to your school or wherever and still teach people halfway across the world online. The two things are not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely, not in a conflict, and they have different reach. They have different specifics. Yes, we need to perform maybe slightly differently when we're doing it from our living room to the rest of the world, as opposed
Of
to
course.
on a tall stage of a Carnegie Hall. Maybe it's a slightly different performance, and it definitely is a different connection, and we're connecting maybe with different people. So these are tools can be used with a slightly different adaptation, but the message is still the same: artist connecting with the world.
Precisely.
And I want to ask you about your early venture into the online. We all had that turning point, for some earlier, for some of us earlier, for some of us later, for some of us still ahead. But I believe that majority of musicians at one point or another had encountered an opportunity or will encounter an opportunity to teach online in one form or another. And you were ahead of many of us. You created a comprehensive course for iClassical Academy, which was a major step towards finding and creating modern forms of online learning. We have a few samples we would like to take a look at that course, but before we watch these little segments, I'd like to ask you, what was your motivation then in creating an online teaching course? Today, I get it. You're a proponent of let's use the new tools because they give us new perspectives. But back then, we didn't know the pandemic was going to happen. So, what was your motivation then?
I think the motivation was the same. I mean, not in terms of not so maybe not so pressing as now we feel more pressed into using the new tools because we have to. Back then, last year, we didn't. But the motivation per se was the same. We need to. Again, I'm going to repeat myself, but we are in a period where we have a fantastic amount of tools at our disposals. Why not use it? And the iClassical Academy which is a fantastic platform that looks forward in this respect, way before the pandemic time, and puts out there courses, videos, everything that I wish I had when I was studying. Because back then there was no such thing. So what you learn on books, of course, partially on scores, on studying, keeping your head down. And it's not that like now you don't. I mean, it's not like that. A video is going to make up for your lack of studying. If you're not studying and practicing yourself, that's not gonna
Of
a
course not.
video is not gonna make it better. However, it has the possibility of impacting you and giving you quick and ready information, uh, and also on uh, what really um, um,
Well,
what
to
was
me,
really fine for what was really interesting for me is the fact that you can rewatch it as many times as you want to.
that's a
So
very good point.
not everybody learns at the same pace, at the same speed. Maybe we all face in our studying career. At one point, you face a wall or you are in a bottleneck, and you don't really know if you grasp the concept or not. At which point, usually, when I was studying, you only had two possibilities: call your teacher up and go live and go to see him or her for a live lesson. And now you can go back and rewatch the concept as many times as you want to, until either something clicks or maybe it doesn't, but then you can just reach the teacher who recorded the video via chat or via, I don't know, Skype or Zoom or whatever. uh, so the idea of being able to have an entire course and being able to rewatch it as many times as you want to online, over anything, your iPad, your phone, your TV, if it's so connected, your laptop, anything. I think it was really something that pushed me through it. And now I have to say one other thing, that I wasn't really convinced about doing it because, like many musicians and many artists, I had the same fear that everybody shares. Uh, okay, I'm sure of what I'm doing, but what if I'm not good enough to explain it?
Of course.
That is something that we all face. I
Of
mean,
course.
we can't deny it, and we can play games and play cool. Oh, I'm no, I nobody knows everything. Nobody knows how to do everything. And certainly, nobody knows how to teach things, because knowing one thing and doing it instinctively, and then having to break it down and teach it to somebody else, it's a totally different thing. And when you do it live, so when you have a live student, is a ball game, and is one particular type of ball game, because you have a direct interaction. So the student tells you, I'm not understanding this, and you show it, and you say, oh no, you no, because you can't do this, you have to do that. Or if you're playing violin, no, your arm is too up, or your elbow is too up, or you're not moving your wrist, whatever it is. When you're in video, you can't do that.
Exactly.
So I had never had experience with that. I had experience with teaching, of course, thanks to my teacher, Harold Faberman, who invited me, first of all, who taught me how to teach. Second of all, who invited me to teach quite a few times up at Bard. So I had direct experience with teaching, but not with making a video to teach people. And that is a different concept, because you have to break things down in a way that if people go back, they can understand the concept without having to ask you, because they can't. I mean, they could eventually if they get to your chat and blah blah, but when they watch the video, it has to be so clear with how you explain things and how you're showing what it is that you're teaching, that it needs a different type of approach. So that was I was a little bit afraid of not being able to break it down in a way that would be easily understandable, even when you play it many times, right?
Well, that
And
sounds seems to me like you're right, a very common hurdle because yes, online teaching often is criticized as and compared to in-person teaching, and we'll get to those questions. But you're absolutely right. Online instruction has to be somewhat different. It has to be created based on somewhat different principles, even when you're talking about the same topics in the actual subject you're teaching. Let us see maybe a sample from
sure,
that course, and we'll come back with some comments.
sure.
There's no orchestra in the world, whether it's a community orchestra, whether it's a band, whether it's a professional orchestra, whether it's a student orchestra, it doesn't matter. No orchestra in the world needs a beat. What they need is a pulse. The pulse is how you start the orchestra, how you give an upbeat, how you keep the motor running, how you change a pace. And the point of origin of the pulse is the wrist. Conducting students are often taught that the primary attention should be on the right hand because that's the one that's beating time. And the left hand should be left for expression. This type of approach doesn't really offer a practical solution to what to do with the left hand. We can use the left hand for cueing players or sections. We can use the left hand to highlight, enhance a solo part. We can use the left hand for dynamics like crescendo and diminuendo, for instance. Or we can use the left hand for a particular change of atmosphere, color, energy, or anything else. Let's take Tchaikovsky, his Symphony number 6, part of the first movement. Now, we've seen the flute has a line that goes up and needs a pulse on the second, between the first and second beat, in order to get out of the slur. So, pim, tirarim, pariram, param, pim, parirarim. We follow the line up, pulsing on beat 2. Pim, 2. Tariram, tararim, tarari, tarari. What happens one bar after that? Well, the bassoon comes in. So, how about we answer the left hand to the left hand with the right hand and alternate the same type of movement exactly as the music shows. See, you're going to have this type of movement going up and down, which is exactly what is in the music.
Gosh, I wish I had access to those resources, clear, comprehensive, and something I could have tried maybe without having to, enroll in the program. And
Yeah,
that is
I can give you a
enriching.
20% discount on it if you want.
I want it. You said it. I want it. I'm taking it. But seriously, and that is something a student can learn at their own pace and
Yeah,
without being pressed to pass the exams and to get your approval that they actually learned it your way. What if you're a very narrow-minded teacher, my way or no way or highway? They
yeah.
don't have to get any of that. They get your knowledge, they get your expertise, your experience. They can adopt it to their own individual needs without any approval from you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As a
And
student, I'd love that.
well, I actually, I haven't seen this in I think 1 year at least since I did it and edited it. But the last part is is one of the things that I love the most, teaching and trying to get the message through is a thing that I insist over and over again, which is breaking the patterns when it comes to conducting. That's why I put quite a few examples. There's 2 chapters in the entire course that are dedicated with actual examples from different scores, from Mozart to Mahler to Copland. There's a passage in there which is asked at any single auditions for conductors, which is because it's particularly difficult, but on how to break the patterns and still be extremely clear for the orchestra in a way that basically the music that's on the page informs and creates and shapes your technique as a conductor. So with your hand, what you're doing is not 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 for half an hour, where everybody who's playing goes to sleep and just plays it by themselves because they don't need it. This is part. See, this is also another thing that everything is connected in this respect. This is an old way of thinking. Okay, the right hand does pattern and the left hand does expression, whatever that means. Nobody knows what that means.
I love it.
Nobody does. What does that mean? If you're a pianist, if I tell you follow my left hand because it does expression, your question is how? Which way
Exactly.
from it? What do you want? Louder, softer, legato, staccato? What is it that you want? Tell me something. Does expression, and then everybody is left to their own devices to improvise whatever it is that they feel with this expression, and nobody else. You have 50 people in the orchestra, nobody understands what that is, or they understand it in a different way because it becomes very individual. They say, "Oh, I think that he meant that," and your partner is sitting in the next to you said, "I don't think so. I think he meant exactly the opposite." And you already have one stand with 2 different opinions. So imagine, multiply that by all the people in the orchestra. What do? They stop watching
They stop watching, exactly.
because your way of conducting is 100 years old. And in the same thing, your way, as we have to, orchestras have evolved, players have evolved, have evolved, technique has evolved. Conductors haven't. We're still stuck in doing 1 2 3 4 for half an hour in a freaking Mozart symphony. Who needs that? Orchestra can do that blindfolded. They don't need a conductor to do that. That's beating time. That's not the purpose of a conductor. That's the purpose of a metronome. We ourselves as conductors, we have to justify our own presence on the podium with something better than just being a metronome with expression in the left hand.
That is incredible.
But the funny thing is that there is a technique for it, and there is no secret. And conductors have quite a bit, I must say. They try to keep by themselves, like they're sort of the guardian of a certain magical power that they didn't want to share with anybody. That's a bunch of BS. You know something, share it as much as you want to, so that as many people can learn from it, because nobody can be you. Nobody can be what you are. And you cannot be like anybody else. And you only have one choice: be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. So you learn, you acquire that technique, and you make the best out of it, and you carve it on your own personality, and of course then you carve it on the music. And when you carve it on the music, then you have something that is unique, because the music is unique every single time. And what you're doing with your hands is actually reproducing the music. It's something that everybody is in awe when they see, for instance, Carlos Kleiber, one of the greatest conductors of all times, who you watch and you're in awe, because he doesn't do 1 2 3 4. He does whatever the heck he wants. He does it as an instinct. But the technique to do that has been codified, has been written down, has been put in a book, has been by Harold Faber, has been put in old VHS tapes, has been taught to an incredible amount of students. And I'm really, really proud to have been one of those students, because the amount of information that's, when you, the saying, don't teach a man to, what is it? Don't teach a man to, don't give a fish to a hungry man, teach him to teach him to go fishing. Uh, it's the same thing. So no matter what the score is that you have in front of you, you open it up, you have visual score study, which is a tool that aids you to extrapolate technical information just by looking at the score. You have registration, you have the independence of the two hands. The one hand can do exactly what the other hand does. You don't have to use them both all the time at the same time. That's ridiculous. You have choices that you can make based on what it is that you're conducting. And now we have the choice to share this knowledge with as many people as possible. So we, as conductors, I do think we have two jobs actually that we need to do. One is to push ourselves to improve beyond what it is that we were taught in the beginning. I myself was taught that this is what you do: 1, 2, 3, 4 expression, 1, 2, 3, 4 expression. And then somebody else's came along and opened up my eyes that was maybe the 19th century thinking, or late 19th century, half maybe of the 20th century perhaps. And we were moving towards the 21st century. So maybe we could sort of change and
And expand on the previous, right?
thinking, and expand a little bit on that. The fact of the matter is that conducting has a technique as much as any instrument. And as much as any instrument, you practice technique. You practice slow with the metronome, and all of these exercises that sound very mechanical are just like the exercises that you do on the piano, on the violin. When you do a scale, when you practice scales on the piano at the metronome, at 60, you start at 60 and then you go up to 140. That's not music, that's a mechanical exercise. When you transfer that into Tchaikovsky concerto, then the D major scale all of a sudden is not a mechanical exercise, turns into something else. And the same thing is with conducting. You practice slower, different type of strokes, the independence of the two hands, registration, everything else. And that's the mechanical part of the technique. And then technique is just a tool that you apply to your own musicality and to the music itself. That's moving forward in conducting technique. And while you do that, you can do that now. Again, we need to adapt to the times that we live in. We have so much opportunities. When I started, and we used to film ourselves during the lessons with a camera. And at home, you couldn't do that because we didn't have a camera. That was a tool from the school. Private camera back then, a portable camera, was quite pricey, quite too pricey for everybody to have at home. So what do? You practice in front of the mirror and you hope for the best until you get in front of the next lesson. Now you can put your phone up, you can record yourself, and you can rewatch yourself. So
Exactly.
do it. Use these tools that you have been blessed with to your own advantage, for your own benefit. And if you're if you're a student, if you are a conductor, or a ground conductor, or if you're a teacher, same thing. Use the tools that you have at your disposal to reach as many people as possible, to get your message go through as much as possible. Make a video, and like many have done, myself included, and use platforms like High Classical Academy to propel your message to as many people as you can. Knowledge needs to be shared. It's not something that you keep to yourself. That's idiotic. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, this is incredible. Knowledge needs to be shared. I want to underscore that, and I hope our viewers make a note of it. Let's see one more sample of Gianmaria Griglio's course, which is offered through iClassical Academy.
Patterns are not conducting. Patterns are nothing but a two-dimensional representation of the music. They show you meter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and speed, at which pace or tempo you're going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. That's all they do. They do nothing else. The first one, the most basic one, is a two-beat pattern. One stroke down, one stroke up. One stroke down, slightly to the right, one stroke up. 1, 2, 1, 2. What you need to keep in check is, of course, the grip of the baton and always your imaginary line so that you can click, 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 click on one and on two. Let's break down the first few bars of the second movement of Beethoven's First Symphony. Now, normally you would do something like you would start with the pulse on the second beat of the bar to give the upbeat for the third beat of the bar where the violins start. 2, do, fa. Now, instead of doing do, fa, you follow pitch registration and you go up. 2, do, fa, and it's legato, so you don't break the movement of the hand while you're following the line going elsewhere. Stay with the player. Stay with the section that you're conducting. Guide them, breathe with them as long as you can. Remember to keep eye contact. Other information inside, like dynamics, like color, but most of all, it never needs to be on the event itself. It always needs to be before. That's the preparation. The preparation is so important because you cannot play or sing on the event.
That's incredible. You cannot play or sing on event, and as a performer myself, it's all about preparing for the next event while you're executing the event you're in. It's always that preparation for the next, and to me, it's not just a rule of successful performing on my instrument. It's also a rule of successful approach to life.
But
But isn't it
that
so? Don't look back at your mistakes from a couple of bars before because they're going to distract you from what you're about to do next.
Oh, of course.
Focus on what is the next thing you're going to be doing.
Of course. And you always have to remember that when you're conducting, when you're playing, when you're singing, basically you're having a conversation with somebody else. So, as a conductor, I'm having a conversation with, let's say, you who are playing in this moment the flute. And then if you're having a conversation with a person, then you're not having a conversation looking elsewhere, right? You're having a conversation, you make eye contact, that's the first thing. So these things of, oh, I'm so in love with the music that I have to look up to God. God is not going to help you make the performance or help the players. Look at the freaking players and make eye contact with them and stay with them. Talk to them, engage them. You have to breathe with the players, not with God or with anybody else. It's not a solo performance. You, as a conductor, you are there and you are playing the orchestra, literally. That's your instrument. And the action, if you're on the podium, is right there. The player is right there looking, you have to look right at them in their eyes and boom, and breathe with them. When you start talking, before you start the sentence, what do? You breathe naturally,
Yes,
right?
of course.
So the preparation is the breathing before the beginning of the sentence. You don't start, you don't, give a cue like this, because if I do this, then if you're playing the other, that's what you're doing.
Of course.
Yeah, you can't, and then you're not gonna do that naturally. So you stop looking because that's distracting. You're just gonna go by yourself. Uh,
Yeah, that's incredible. My father was a symphony conductor, and my mother was a violinist in the orchestra which he conducted, which put a lot of strain on my family, as you can imagine.
yeah.
Because my mother's philosophy was the best conductor is a dead conductor. God forbid she didn't wish my dad death. But my dad's philosophy was the best conductor is the one who doesn't do what others can do. So I guess that's how they found peace to be a family
Yeah,
together.
middle ground. Let's say.
But I love to hear this about the connection, the communication as a driving force for a conductor. And if I may globalize that a little bit on a more general scope and say, probably for all musicians, we are about language and communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, down to from look, from a solo pianist, you are breathing with your own instrument. If you play with in a duet, in a trio, in a quartet, what do? You look at each other, you breathe together, and you start. And then when I don't know, there's a corona, there's a hold, or there's a break, whatever it is, there's a comma. You breathe together, and you move on. You breathe with the music, but you breathe all together. And with the orchestra, it's the same thing. The orchestra needs to breathe together. Only the only difference is that they can't possibly, if they have 120 people plus the chorus, look at themselves, at each other, to breathe together. So the point of reference becomes the conductor. That's what we are. We are a connector. We connect uh, people that are playing with the players in the orchestra together, with us, with the music, with the audience. And I'm doing that because usually we give the back to the audience, but in this moment, it's actually with the audience in
That's
front of the
right.
screen. Uh, but uh, but that's what we are. That's what we do. And then we make, when that is successful, we make everybody breathe together at the same time. That's how you create a cohesive performance. Not what everybody is sort of looking by themselves, for themselves, or sort of trying to get by because of whatever reason you have to. And the way that you engage people is, besides your personality, that's part of it. Besides your knowledge, that's part of it. That's all great. But the way you have to have, because during the performance you can't talk. You can't talk your way through a performance. You have to do it. So you have to have a technique that allows you to express your personality. What if you're invited, which it happened to me quite a few times actually, conductors fall sick and you're invited, you're called at the last minute to do a performance. What do you have? You don't have 3 hours of rehearsal. You don't have 6 hours of rehearsal. You have half an hour perhaps, if you're lucky. Otherwise, you go on stage and you talk to the concertmeister and you go on stage. So if you don't, you can't talk your way through it. You have to have a technique that allows you to articulate the music, to connect to the people in front of you, to articulate the music right away, in the moment that it happens. And if you have that, then you can, people actually do see that, they attach to it, and you can do pretty much anything you want, as long as you're connected with your gestures, with your eyes, with yourself, to whoever it is that you're talking to. Then you can guide them wherever you want them to go.
And I would imagine, even though, of course, the orchestras cannot currently come together in the same group as it used to be before the pandemic. But and the conductors are, are out of the situation when you can have that instrument in front of you. But that being oriented towards this intense build up of a connection, being almost a professional skill, which conductor has to build, right? Do I understand
Yeah.
correctly?
Yeah.
How do you believe that changes, if at all, your attitude about the value of connection and whether or not it's worth today for musicians to venture into pretty scary and intimidating world of learning technology just so that we can connect with our student who used to come to our studio, let alone connect with our audience which used to come to the concert hall in the city I am in to see me perform. Does it help you because you're so much ahead of so many of us and you're really exploring all those new technologies? Do you think being a conductor actually helped you embrace the new technology, or it has no connection?
Being a conductor, I don't know. I would say maybe being curious. I do have one philosophy in life that doesn't necessarily only apply to music, but it applies to everything. There's only one thing that I'm certain of, that I do not know anything. It's very Socratic in philosophy, which is something that pushes me to explore further and further every single time a score or a book or a different aspect of life, right? So the point is that you have, if you're a teacher, you have a goal. If you are whatever it is that you're teaching, it doesn't really matter actually in this particular configuration. You have a goal. Your goal is to teach your students. So in order to teach your students, you do whatever it takes to teach your students. And the tools, I must say that the tools that we have at our disposal now are really fairly easy to understand, to acquire.
Well, not everyone agrees with that point, though. Many people say, "Well, these tools you call easy, they are not easy. They're too difficult and not worth the effort and the time investment and the financial investment to acquire."
Okay, well, the financial investment is not, honestly, is not that much, because you can start by doing things off your phone. Every phone now has a camera, and if you have a decent camera and a decent connection, if you really want to, you can just start with that. You press a button, you connect via Skype, and Skype has been around for 20 years now, I think. So everybody's more or less accustomed to it. If you want to go a little more, expand a little more on the technology, there's as much as much room as you want to, or as much room as your wallet allows you to go. I would say, but point point being, the fact that you do not need to focus on the technology. What you need to focus is the content or the concept or the idea that you're trying to get through. I've done video lessons because they didn't have a new camera yet, the phone wasn't working, whatever. I done video lessons on a laptop which has a camera which probably has, I don't know, 4 pixels, if that's still, which means that it was probably grainy all as it gets. But it doesn't matter. That's not the point. We're not here to watch a movie, or we're not here to make a movie either. Sure, the better it looks and the better it sounds, especially for musicians, the better it is. Fine,
That's a
that's great,
given.
but that's a given. But the point is that of course we sort of, I think that we're sort of trying to um, measure ourselves up to all the perfections that we see in videos out there that have been edited, I don't know how many times, or that perhaps have been shot by a crew of 5 cameramen. But that's not the point. that's having a good package, a great package, which might make you look good or feel better. But if you don't have a good message that comes across, it's all useless. It's the same
Absolutely.
thing of having, going on, I don't know, renting Carnegie Hall, going on stage, and then playing really poorly. Yes, you're in Carnegie Hall, you might have a $50,000 video, but the music that comes through is still poor. So
It's
who
it
who, who cares? Who's
exactly.
gonna watch that? I mean, the important thing is that when you connect to people, you have a message. People want a message. That's what they want. If they hire you as a teacher, it's because they think that you have something interesting to say, not because you look good on camera.
That's an incredible. That's an incredible point. And yes, at Sound Espressivo here, we strive to deliver the contestants' performances to the best ability of the current technology. And maybe it's as good as some of the recordings. I dare say it's as good or better than many recordings made at home with a home phone. Maybe it's not as good as a video shot, like you said, with a five cameraman at a tremendous Hollywood type cost. But
Yeah.
somewhere in between those extremes, there is a happy medium which allows people to deliver the message. And
Yeah.
contestants have the message which they deserve to have an opportunity to deliver. So, Sound Espressivo competition relies on the virtual stage, which is provided by virtual concert halls. And virtual concert halls, in its own right, is a new model broadcasting company which supports live music performances with a cutting edge technology, I have to say. It's a company which was created by musicians, professional musicians, of course, in collaboration with professionals from many other fields, cross field, cross discipline. Of course, the technology industry and the television industry professionals had a lot of say in the matter of how to create the virtual stage. Virtual concert halls also provides its services and opportunities to some of the most renowned musicians, like conductor Gianmaria Griglio today. And among those musicians are Grammy and Emmy Award winners, members of top orchestras and opera companies, faculty members and department chairs of some of the most well-known conservatories like Juilliard School, Moscow Conservatory, Colburn School, Cologne School, and just to name a few. However, Sound Espressivo competition is opening its doors wide to invite on the virtual stage, which we call the stage of the future, to musicians and music students, regardless of their location and regardless of their affiliation with powerful music industry companies. But it all started with four professional musicians looking for using the tools at our disposal towards what we want. We wanted to continue to do what we love and value, which is to share our talent with the rest of the world. And this is how it's all started. Gianmaria, I gotta admit, I'm running out of time on this program much faster than I'm even approaching this to scratch the surface of the questions which I want to ask you. So, if you would allow me to first get you Undersigned here on air while people are watching that you're going to come back and answer the rest of my questions before I ask my last question
Gladly.
for today.
Absolutely. Gladly.
You said that.
Yes, I do. I
I'm
do.
going to hold you responsible. But at any rate, I do want to ask this one more question before we will have to wrap up today's program, which I hope will be the first of many with Gianmaria Griglio. And that is, how do you see the future and potentials of musicians performing live through virtual platforms like the one we are on, virtual concert halls, or many other ones, which will put together those tools to support live performances in good quality? What do you see the future of it is going to be?
Well, I think that is part of the future. Is definitely part of the future because I mean, pandemic. Let's put it this way: the pandemic that we're living period of time that we're living in right now simply accelerated things. I think it simply stepped on the gas of something that was already going in that direction. And I don't see why it shouldn't. We have tools, let's use them. It cuts down in so many, it's so helpful for so many things. For instance, let's imagine, I mean, I don't really have to imagine because I did it. And because I've seen people doing it, my colleagues did it. You know, we had competitions, and what you do, you take your suitcase and you travel to go to the competition, whether it is in Spain or in London or in Paris or in Canberra or wherever else it is in the world. And that not everybody can afford. And a lot of time you have musicians that are coming from lesser fortunate families, background, part of the world who would definitely deserve an opportunity, who can't have it simply because they can't take a plane and go from Sao Paulo to Besançon. Um, and now we are in a position of being able to do that. And I think that is definitely something that should not be discarded and even less disregarded as something, you know, oh well, it's just a temporary patch, or it's just something that we do now because we can't do anything else, but we'll go back to our own ways. Uh, right. And I mean, if people had thought that way, we wouldn't have radio, television, records. We wouldn't have had the internet. We wouldn't be speaking right now. We wouldn't be going to Mars. You have to have a vision of the future, and things can move parallel. You embrace the past, you use it, and you move forward, and you create something new, and something that, of course, will it be perfect the first time that it comes around? Nothing is. Of course it won't. Nothing is perfect the first time that it comes around, because you have to tweak it. You have to find your ways to make it work. But the fact that it's not going to be perfect is not going to stop me from making the videos that I'm making. It's not going to stop anybody from playing online, performing online, doing a competition online. There's always room for improvement. That's why we keep going, and that's how we keep moving forward. But if you don't do it because you think that it's useless, even trying it, then okay, well then, you know, go on a desert island and live in the past. That's fine. It's your choice. That's perfectly fine. But the world is not moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. The world is moving in a different, opposite direction, and I think we should embrace it and try to make the most out of it. And you know, from one idea, then comes another, then comes another, then comes another, and finally we'll get to what we consider a perfection. And by the time we get there, we'll have 100,000 different ideas to make it even more perfect. It's the beauty of being alive and doing things. You know, you find and discover new things, and you can improve them. And right now, we can improve them at such a fast pace that it's incredible.
And besides, we don't just automatically get there to the perfection. Someone is taking us there.
Yeah.
May as well be us.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. I totally agree. Yes.
Gianmaria, this has been a tremendous pleasure to have you on the program and have you share your vision, your message, your very convincing way of persuasion. I'm persuaded. You totally convinced me. I am going to perform online because it's a tool. Why not use it? It's incredible.
Okay.
But seriously, it has been very enriching and very joyful, and you really made my day. And even the weather around me is improving.
Oh, well,
Thank you for bringing the
that's right.
sunshine. We all need some.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure for me as well, really. So, well,
And
I guess I'll see you next time.
we'll be looking forward and definitely bringing you back on because I'm not scratching those questions. I still want the answers to them.
Very well. Yeah.
And again, I would like to thank you for being on our program. And with this, I would like to thank our viewers, our supporters, everyone who put their effort, energy into making these programs possible, into bringing together leading musicians from around the world. Today we had Gianmaria Griglio joining us from the Netherlands. And I would like to also extend our many, many thanks to a crew of professional musicians behind this frame, people who are performers and educators themselves, and who embraced the future, embraced the new, and added more technical skills to their long list of skills already, and who are supporting these programs and working out the knickknacks of broadcasting music live and music programming live. Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed our program and see you again soon. Bye.